Once every 2 years or so, Mars stands across the sky from Pluto, and this tends to represent a turning point, a looking in the mirror moment that comes on after a period of some stress, but has us feeling intensely so before it is that the energy very quickly dissipates right after this energy does perfect, which in this case does take place either very late Saturday, just before we start this week in the Americas, or Sunday in most of the world. And while I spoke about that last week, let me say that in this case, chances are we won't feel that break in energy, that release that we might be looking for, that sense of a turning point, at least not just yet. We might have to wait until we're a little bit later into the very beginning of the week. In fact, it is going to be on Sunday or Monday, depending on where you are on the planet, that we are going to have a powerful new moon in the sign of Taurus. Now, it is this new moon that is setting up a larger configuration called a T-square, which is a configuration of tension and motivation and frustration as well. As much as Mars opposite Pluto can suggest a turning point moment, it is with this new moon that we are feeling all of the pressure, and this part of life ends up feeling that much more stressed, that much more as if change is imperative and it's got to happen right now. For most of us, though, it is just a change in perspective that's needed. As much as we might want to take action, which is generally a good thing, if those actions are coming from a place of impulsivity, then we're working against the sky of the moment and the sky of this time. The energy of Taurus, after all, is patient. And this is a new moon, which invites a new beginning. Now, that new beginning that comes on now, yes, it might feel as if it comes about because we want things to be different and we feel the frustration of that. And yet, channeling this energy wisely and committing to a magical process, not necessarily a magic pill. Well, it is the process itself that helps us to build something, which, taken one step at a time, one diligent moment at a time. Well, it will be 6 months from now that we're going to have a full moon in Taurus. And that is when truly incredible things rooted in the strength of our own power and our own self-knowledge, the desire for change, helps us to harness our will and manifest something we're really proud of in the fullness of time. Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of April 27, 2025. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. Synchronicity University programs start this week, which means that it is just the first days of the week that you have left to choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class to learn from iconic astrologers like the one and only ASTRO-FINANCIAL legend, Christeen Skinner. You can learn from me, past lives in the astrology chart, and these incredible speakers coming up as part of the May 2025 speaker series. Links are below. In ancient mythologies the world over, the bull has been considered a symbol of strength, of resilience, of embodiment, stubbornness, steadfastness. It has to do with the absolute strength that we could find within our physical selves and the enjoyment of the physical self as well. And in this way, the bull was sometimes associated with Venus and sometimes associated with Zeus, both symbols of fertility and abundance. Both are considered astrologically the benefics, where Venus is the lower benefic, which is the lower blessing, and Jupiter is the higher benefic, the higher blessing. When we have a new moon in the sign of Taurus, now, under normal circumstances and all else being equal, this can suggest a brand new journey that we undertake. Any new moon is the chance to begin again, which is part of the renewal of life. Every 28 and a half days, we get a new moon. Under a new moon in Taurus, whatever it is that we might begin will likely require consistency and, a measure of some stubbornness, a commitment to the pathway ahead. But the thing is that that shouldn't stop us from being flexible with the pathway, because that ultimately is the way forward. The way forward isn't just when it is that we're tapping into a singular element, which actually is really dominant right now, especially as is the case with fixed energy. It is Pluto that is in the fixed sign of Aquarius. It is Mars that is in the fixed sign of Leo, and it is this new moon that is in the fixed sign of Taurus. And fixed signs, they fall in the middle of a season, so they hold a characteristic of the time. And for that time, it does suggest staying the course, staying on a particular pathway. But where does that fit in terms of wanting to begin something? Well, it has to do with commitment, but the thing is that some of that commitment might come on through tension or having to admit where it is that we feel powerless. That is part of the energy of this time as well. That's what happens with squares of Pluto in particular. You add Mars in, and the desire for change feels imperative. It feels on the surface, and the frustration can feel especially visceral at this time as well. Now, another layer of what's playing out here, it's Pluto. Pluto is essentially standing still in the sky this week. Now, early next week, Pluto will officially go retrograde. And I'm going to talk about that next week, because that is a symbol in and of itself that we can dive into that's set to be incredibly important. But for now, the thing to remember is that Plutonian energy is very strong. It's very much in the air, which means there is an intensity that feels as if it reaches a very profound part within ourselves. And this is about, in some ways, having to dig very deep within us to find the strength, to find the nuance, to find the motivation, to get honest with ourselves about what change is worth moving towards and what isn't. But with Pluto, there's always a need to understand that very fine line between power and powerlessness. And a lot of us will likely be addressing that at this time under the light of this new moon in particular, where it is that we desire to harness our energy and our absolute focus to have our lives go a certain way. We have to also acknowledge that we can only do our best and surrender the rest. It is that we can only do so much and move forward. Now, as part of this, I have to say, the energy of frustration is real for a lot of people. The energy of stress this week is real for a lot of people. And yes, the exact opposition of Mars and Pluto, once that took place, and that is energy we are entering this week with, late Saturday last week, or at the very beginning of this week in most of the world, well, once that energy takes place, that should bring with it a shift, but it really is going to be once the new moon happens, activating this opposition by forming a T-square, that we're then going to find ourselves feeling this energy, at least of the tension, and at least for now in some ways dissipate. And yet it's still not completely over, because Pluto is stationary, because Pluto has yet to go officially retro. Once it is that we get that retrograde kicking in, well, a few things happen. One is we start a pathway where planets are retrograde once again. But the other is that retrograde planets invite us to go within. They invite us to go to deeper levels of understanding within ourselves. They invite us to find deeper understandings of our responsibility, of how it is we might be using a particular energy. And whatever might be happening this week, understand that it is very likely we may see it differently once we navigate into next week. Once it is that Pluto officially does go retrograde next week, we are likely going to take more responsibility for our part in what might have felt tense or uncertain, or maybe even just downright unfair. But it's also ultimately in many ways about trust where that's needed, and ownership where that's needed. And so ownership for our own actions, for doing our best, for where it is that perhaps we've contributed to a certain set of circumstances. However, there's a fine line again between blaming ourselves for something that isn't our fault and also realizing how we participated in certain outcomes that help us to feel right now that we are primed for a new beginning, that we are just so deeply frustrated with a particular circumstance that we can't help ourselves but begin again in some way. But there's another way, of course, with Pluto, which is those very deep layers and levels of unfairness that might be kicking up for us at this time. And it becomes really important to be honest with ourselves about where it is we might be feeling that, and yet to be patient with our understanding of why we're feeling whatever it is that we're feeling. To find a deeper sense of what power we have within a particular circumstance that, again, might not be fair. And yet that doesn't mean that we are completely at the whims of external circumstances. Sometimes the most empowering thing you can do is change the way you see a particular situation, or the way in which you're interpreting what you're feeling around a certain person, place, thing, or situation. Now, this is also Taurian energy. So let me say, for the collective, this is going to bring a focus on matters of the economy. That's what Taurus tends to awaken for us, where it comes to what's happening, whether it's personally with our money, but certainly in a larger sense, economic patterns and new beginnings might be found now. But again, because we've got this powerful and extremely frustrating T-square that's part of this mix, well, it suggests that we are feeling as if there are certain factors that are not fair, that we wish were different. And power struggle energy is very much at play at this time. Now, where it comes to what's going to be happening for the collective, I think that there is a myth of involving the bull, its connection to Jupiter in particular, that might illuminate for us what is likely going to be happening as we're starting this week and moving through this time. And that is the fact that the bull figures in important ways where it comes to our understanding of Jupiter, and Jupiter turning himself into a bull to try and get sort of the favor of, and to trick perhaps people that he had his eye on, people that he wanted something more with, that he was trying to seduce. Well, very famously, there is a story of him turning himself into this beautiful, glowing bull, and he approaches Europa. Now, Europa was a Phoenician princess. Her father was the king of Crete. And in Jupiter turning himself into this magnificent creature, he's able to gain her trust, is able to get close to her, and she falls in love with him in this particular embodiment. So off Europa goes, like riding this bull. And once it is that she gets to Crete and she's, feeling very comfortable and very happy, well, Zeus reveals who he actually is. They fall in love. And this becomes a very important, first important myth around understanding Jupiter and his nature and the way in which he's able to transform himself into different figures. And it is, of course, Europa, after whom the continent of Europe is named. The bull has taken on, throughout culture, throughout history, deeply mystical and symbolic qualities. But in order to kind of commemorate this wonderful thing that took place with them being in love with each other, once it is that Zeus revealed whom it is that he actually is, well, it was Zeus that, as a gift to Europa, created the bull in the constellations, which is now the Taurus constellation. Now, later tellings of this myth, though, show Europa actually kidnapped and not being willing to go with Zeus. But earlier renditions show them falling very much in love. Now, I bring all this up because, like I said, Europa is named after Europe. And we might see that as part of what comes into focus. In particular, economic matters around the world are likely to be discussed, but this idea of the stubbornness, the focus of the bull, and this idea of Europe being carried away in this energy, well, might figure as part of the energy of this time. Now, if you're not following Cameron Allen on Instagram, you really should. He makes these wonderful posts, and this incredible post, it just reached out at me, and he's written this beautiful poem with it. But the captivating caption is, "The blindness the desire to be seen can cause." And that's how he explores from that beginning this understanding of Mars back in Leo and what it might represent for us collectively and individually as well. And I thought that was so apt because there is this sense of our desires creating blinders, right? We know this. And to consider that there's an actual desire to be seen and what that actually means and why we might want that, well, it brings with it various layers of understanding beyond that as well. And looking at whether or not wounds are involved are part of this. It is often people who give themselves away. You look at what people are talking about, what they're thinking about. Somebody who walks around and says, "I don't care what people think. I don't care what people think." That person probably cares a lot about what people think. People who walk around and they say, "Yeah, I'm so powerful. I'm so powerful." Chances are they really don't feel very powerful. And so in this way, people sort of tell on themselves, if you will. And the one thing that really gives people away is how much peace with which they're approaching any given moment in any given circumstance. Now, as Cameron explores in this post, the very nature of the impulsivity of Mars means that we're likely to act before we really contemplate or even see accurately the motivations behind our actions. And the impulsivity itself is a type of, and the unwillingness to really understand with greater depth and nuance before we act, well, that in and of itself can be described as a certain type of blindness. But in contrast, Mars is an energy of self-knowledge and acting from that place. And sometimes we act first, and then through our actions, we're able to then contemplate and realize where it was that in our impulsivity, we didn't see certain things that actually, now that we give ourselves a chance to sort of take a little bit of a respite, we can see more clearly. And I think that's part of the energy of this new moon as well. The energy of Taurus is one that is extraordinarily patient. It thinks through and it contemplates what it is that should be done next before it is done. But the energies of Mars and Pluto adding intensity, well, it adds to it that much more impulsivity, which can feel just downright unnatural for this Taurian new moon. And so as much as we might see power struggles, power games playing out, and we might see that playing out and affecting what it is that's taking place in Europe in particular, but around the world, this clash of personalities that could be taking place. And I know that we've seen that on the world stage as of late. Well, here comes a sense of some pressure, some sense of further uncertainty, and yet who is it that's going to stay focused? Who is it that's going to stay the course? And who is it and where is it that perhaps some flexibility is needed? Well, that flexibility itself might be hard to find. The willingness to change, to adapt, that is something that we may not see as many examples of, the kind of examples that we just might need right now to find a sense of a more measured approach. Now, another example that fits into this oncoming symbol, let me say, I thought that this was so perfect, is that if you are somebody who is extremely online, as it's called now, right? You might know, and if you are somebody who's into it, and what it is things like designer bags, for example. You might have heard that there was this viral video this week that was put out by a Chinese factory. And they said that 80% of Hermes bags are made in their factory and then they're shipped off to France. And then there they put that made in France label on it. And they end up selling these bags for Usually at least starting price is $12,000 for a Hermes bag. Now, I will say to you, way back in the day, I know we talked about, and we're talking like 2018, 2019, I was saying that with Pluto and Aquarius, like Pluto in Capricorn was very much about status symbols, but Pluto in Aquarius is like a rejection of status symbols, and it's very much about creativity. And yeah, sometimes it is the clone as well that we see. And that's basically what this Chinese factory was saying, is that they have their artisans and they have a thriving clone industry, but also they have an industry that is the original. It's not just a clone, it's an original. It's just that it's labeled certain ways to get people to purchase it. Okay, whether or not you think that's accurate or whatever is sort of besides the point. One thing that happened just as I'm recording this is that Hermes has launched a lawsuit for defamation towards people who've made these kind of videos, towards these companies, towards these factories that create these super clones, if you will. It reminded me of something rather fascinating, and this is going back to 2020. So in 2020, I had a speaking engagement in New York City. It was wonderful. If you were there, I send you a very big hug. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful, wonderful trip. And in New York City, I remember going to it was the Museum of Modern Art. I was with a friend. We went and sat down to have food there. And sort of a few meters away, yes, I'm Canadian, I'm going to talk in meters here. A few meters away, there was another table. And I remember so clearly because there was this woman sitting there and she had a Hermes bag, and the way that she placed it on the table, it really was like she was saying, look at the bag. Look at the bag first. Look at the bag. Look at my bag. Yes, I can have this bag. Like I could feel this radiating from her and from this bag. And I thought that that was so fascinating that I would see that. But also that she felt like she needed to do that. And so now here we are. How many people still feel like they need to do that they need to sort of present the bag before you even see them or who they are? Well, yeah, I guess it depends on where you are on the planet still. And yet, I think we're going to see examples like that less and less as we navigate further and further into Pluto in Aquarius. Bringing back to this week, though, and what's happening right now, I think we're likely going to see this contrast, this frustration, this sense of, well, if I like it, it's enough. And it's not about necessarily going for the status symbols anymore. Let's go for what's the creative expression, or just more motivated by, whatever aesthetic I like, rather than what the label actually is. And in this way, I mean, look, that factory saw a huge boon. And also the guy in the video was saying that, look, you think you're looking at a bag that costs $15,000, $20,000, but are you really? Like, are you really? Now, Leo is about what's fabulous, whatever that is. If you think that brand names are fabulous, you go for it. If you think back, the most Leo trend I ever saw was a few years ago when Gucci was doing that whole like collage thing, right? Like people were decked out head to toe with Gucci and metallic leathers, and it was just very, very fabulous, a trend that we had there for about a year. That's very Leo. It's saying, I'm fabulous. Taurus energy says, I'm fabulous, but in a different way. It says it by wanting luxury, by wanting the experience of luxury, by it not necessarily being that, oh, look, I got this, whatever, bag. But it's a lot more about, how does this bag actually feel in my hands? What is the craftsmanship like here? How long is this going to last? How is it that this bag is going to become one of those things that I'm going to pass down to my kids and my grandkids and so on for the rest of my life? There is tension between these matters of what is real and the very nature of Pluto is to look at the underbelly, to look at what's really going on, but also to examine your motives and why it is that you want it, and where it is that we might see ourselves wanting certain possessions, particularly physical possessions, whatever they might be, whatever might motivate the desire for those possessions. Now that's versus experiences. Experiences, we see that coming into play when we look at fire signs, but that's not what we're seeing here, right? We're getting a new moon in Taurus. And what that says is, what is it worth? What am I getting? Especially, what am I getting in a very real material sense, but also what am I earning? How can I have that thing that's worth having that thing? Many, many years ago, I met up with a friend and I was like, oh, look, you're wearing a Rolex. And my friend said, it's fake. I just liked how it looked and stuff like that. And I remember afterwards thinking to myself, like, to me, it's not about having the Rolex. To them, it was just about having it. That was what they wanted to do. More power to them, if that feels right for them. But I thought to myself, isn't it so much more about like earning it? Like earning something is a different thing than simply having the statement of a thing. It's like my father says to me, he used to say to me, that it's one thing to be a king. It's another thing to pretend to be a king. And this is kind of the thing that he was talking about, is that it is one thing to just have something, just to have it, to show that you have it. It's another thing to know the journey that got you towards having the thing. Now, how we feel about that in our own lives and what it is that's worth having and what isn't, well, that just might be part of the frustration and tension. I do think there are going to be some of us who want something and they want it right now, but the universe is going to say, hey, hold on, maybe wait, maybe consider what it is that's going to get you there rather than the instant gratification of right now. If Taurus is anything, it is anti-instant gratification. It is very much about the magic process and not the magic pill. Now, as I share all this, let me be very, very clear. There's no judgment and there's nothing wrong with wanting recognition. I think that ambition is sacred. Ambition is ultimately a voice within or something inside you that says, you know what, I can work on my own behalf. I can get where it is that I envision myself to be, get where it is that I desire to go. And especially where it is that we trust our own efforts. And again, we're willing to stay flexible. Absolutely. Human beings are capable of overcoming all kinds of odds and are able to align with all kinds of outcomes way before they've actually manifested. And that is a part of our sacred energy that we co-create with the universe. The problem becomes when we don't examine why it is that we're wanting to create what we do. And also where it is that we perhaps would rather wear a mask and use those outcomes as a mask rather than a more self-realizing exploration. Because from that place, from that willingness, well, at least what it is that we manifest, it aligns with something authentic. And chances are in that case, it'll be a lot more satisfying an outcome. The ruling planet of Taurus is Venus. And Venus is at a very important moment as part of the larger Venus retrograde season. Yes, Venus is direct. And now Venus is retracing the steps that she took while she was retrograde. And it is on Wednesday that Venus will change signs, moving back into the sign of Aries. And on Friday is going to meet Neptune in the sky. This becomes important because this is the third and final meeting as part of this larger Venus retrograde season that Venus is going to have with Neptune. And what makes this meeting different and special is that this time Venus and Neptune are meeting in the sign of Aries, whereas the last two meetings took place in the sign of Pisces. Now, Pisces, Aries, very different vibes, very different energies. The energy of Pisces, and especially Venus in Pisces, meeting Neptune no less, is sublime. It is hopeful. It is immersive. It is compassionate as well. It's fantastical. But Venus meeting Neptune in Aries is super passionate. It is very impulsive. I mean, talk about blindness. Talk about blinders. Love and passion and desire, especially physical desire, can have us creating all kinds of binders that we don't even realize are there sometimes. I don't know if this has happened to you, but has there ever been a time when, and I think this has happened to a lot of us, there's somebody and we think they're like the most amazing thing and we're so drawn to them, and then we have some experiences with them, and sort of on the other side of those experiences, we look at them and we're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? What was going on? I can't believe I ever felt whatever way about you, right? That is because so much of desire itself is illusion. And so much of desire is about hope. In fact, you can't have love without imagination. It just can't exist, because if you don't have the imagination, you're not going to have the hope. And if you don't have the hope, well, considering how fraught love can be otherwise, well, it truly is somebody who has that sense of possibility within them that's even going to be open to romantic connections at all. Venus meeting Neptune is a turning point moment, but it's a turning point of the contrast between fantasy and disappointment. Our hope and the sense that maybe something that we wanted is here and we're elated, or what we wanted is gone for good. It's also about the ways in which that perhaps we haven't been honest with ourselves, and now we're having to face where it is that we told ourselves stories or created illusions. This is the type of illusion that isn't necessarily rooted in having to accept some truth, but rather allowing the illusion to rise and then allowing it to wash through us as we move forward. Now, as part of this, I do think that there are going to be a lot of people who, at the very beginning of the week, could swear that they're madly in love. And then we get to the end of the week, the very end of the week, you add to this, by the time we get to the end of the week, Pluto is stationed. Okay, so there's this energy there of some very harsh, very intense need to look at what's really going on, to look at factors of manipulation and unfairness. And I think as I look at this, that if you feel that you've fallen in love at first sight, which I think, look, anytime Venus moves through Aries, that can happen. You add to it the fact that from now on, anytime Venus moves into Aries, there's going to be lots of love at first sight types of experiences and moments that different people are experiencing. Well, it is right after this transit, and especially now with that Pluto gearing up to go retrograde next week. Well, yeah, a lot of us might feel that we found that, but before the week is out, we start to feel the energy sort of dissipating. We start to feel ourselves moving beyond a high, and for every high, there is a low. And the energies this week do suggest that it is going to be, as we navigate this week, that we are feeling very elated. But before the week is out, we can sense, we know that this dip is coming. And that could stir certain fears, stir certain pains, stir things that are so much deeper than what any given moment is actually about. Now, a great way that Venus meeting Neptune can be experienced is forgiveness. This is Aries energy. And that forgiveness can allow new starts. Those new starts can be in the context of specific bonds that continue to evolve and grow in some way, or it could be a new start that has us going a whole other way on a brand new path and a brand new journey. Now, this shows up especially in the context of love, but it's desire of all kinds that we might find here. And it's wherever it is that we start courting Venus, right? Venus is love, beauty, prosperity, whatever we consider the good life to be. Wherever it is that we feel that things are easier and things are more at ease. Remember, if we're being offered some of that, or we think that's possible, which it just might be, but it's very possible that it might just be an illusion. And so, I like to say, pace yourself and be yourself. We're really going to have to remember that as we move later into the week, because that Venus officially going retro is right around the corner. It is going to come on strong. And when it does, depending on how much in the clouds we are as we approach the later days of this week, may correlate to how deep we may end up having to go. How much it is that we just find ourselves going into a place that is of the underbelly or the underworld, to really understand those more hidden dynamics of why and what might really be happening now. It's just not going to be clear just yet. What I love about this week for us, there's so much here. It's a powerful and meaningful astrological moment. Well, I do think, especially as we're starting this week, so much focus is on the new moon in the sign of Taurus. But remember, Venus is the ruling planet of Taurus, which means that whatever's happening with Venus in some way connects to that new moon energy. It connects to the realization and the progress that new moon just might bring. And one of the more important things that Venus does right after that new moon later in the week is changes signs, moves into a fire sign, and connects with Neptune. And all of that tells me that there's a bit of a roller coaster of an energy for some of us out there with a week like this. There are hard truths, intense feelings, but also a whole lot of hope, but also a whole lot of fantasy as well. But regardless of how it is that we navigate this time, understand that more has likely yet to be revealed. There is a seed moment with any given new moon energy. And in this case, it is the seed of a decision. What process are we willing to engage, commit to, and follow through on? Where is it that we're willing to embark on a journey that we can see has a whole lot of steps, but we're willing to take them to get us where it is that we want, even though we know whatever it is we're wanting, it isn't going to come about through instant gratification. If we feel like that's happening in any way, personally related to any person, place, thing, or situation, like you meet somebody and you're madly in love and that this is it for you, those are illusions. But where it is that we perhaps meet somebody and we're sort of non-attached and willing to see where it might go, we have a lot of hope, but we're aware of the hope and we're willing to trust the journey. Well, those journeys have a lot better chance of solid outcomes. But of course, this might not be about romantic love. This could be a journey towards self-love, towards manifesting or realizing something that you want to have in life or to be in some way. Well, are you willing to follow the steps through to become that person, to have that thing? Well, it is now that we're asking ourselves, do we really want it? Is that really whom it is that we are? Or is it that we've got blinders on in one way or another? Some difficult truths are going to have to be looked at by some of us out there. And yet that is part of the sacred journey that ultimately gets us to those very magical outcomes in the fullness of time. Well, thank you so much for watching. What do you love about this week? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading you guys, and to prove it to you, here's some of my most recent favorite comments. Thank you to everybody who likes, who comments, who subscribes, who shares, with thumbs up. All of it means so much. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. And of course, if you want to know how all this wonderful stuff this week speaks to you and your sign, log on to NadiyaShahSuperstars.com or thefutureismagical.com, where you get expanded exclusive video scopes for as low as just $3 a month, which choose your membership rate. Higher tiers get you things like all access passes to Synchronicity University events, consultations with me, and so much more. All of this in the Superstar space at NadiyaShahSuperstars.com. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University is proud to present an absolutely incredible May season coming up. New programs are launching this week, and as we start this week, you've got just a couple days left to choose your tuition rate, like literally just a couple days left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class, to learn from these incredible astrologers as part of fulfilling the mission of Synchronicity University, which is to make quality astrological education available to the masses. And boy, do we have quality here. I'm going to start with one of our astro legends. I kid you not, the one and only Christeen Skinner is coming to Synchronicity University. Christeen is widely recognized around the world as a leading astrology, financial astrology expert. She's the author of many, many books. And she is just so brilliant. It is just so obvious when you talk to her that this is somebody who really knows what they're talking about. They know their stuff. And where it comes to understanding prosperity and how to magnify it and maximize it for yourself using astrology, she is the person to help you to do just that. So it is going to be Christeen that is starting her classes later on this week. It is, as you start this week, that you can learn from Christeen for as low as just $5 a class. And there is nowhere else on the planet that Christeen teaches for that low a rate as she does here. And so it is literally days to choose your tuition rate. And it is this moment that can represent starting a brand new understanding of prosperity and how to align with it that Christeen can really help you with. So learn more. Sign up now at synchronicityuniversity.com to learn from the one and only Christeen Skinner. We are so fortunate to have her here at Synchronicity University for a rare live course with us. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University presents me. I am coming to Synchronicity University with Stardust Revelations. Past lives in the astrology chart is what we're going to be looking at here. And you've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class. Now, classes are starting this week on Thursday, I believe, is when I'm going to be teaching this class for a full 5 weeks. And we are going to look at past lives from different perspectives. We're going to have 2 classes on the South Node, 2 classes on the 12th house, and 1 class on the North Node, because understanding where you've been, well, that's wonderful, and that's part of what this is about, but how does that speak to where it is that you're going? That's what the North Node class is going to help us to understand. Now, one of my books, I have 6 books published so far. One of them is called The Universe is Wise and Loving. And that book is all about the nodes of the moon. It might make a good companion to this class, but it's not necessary. As long as you have some basic understanding of astrology, you'll be able to keep up with this class, no problem. So like I said, if you know what a 12th house is, if you know what a South Node is, you'll be able to keep up with this class. I hope that you will join us, because I think this is a powerful reminder of understanding that ultimately we are on a journey of the soul, and it is the soul that is real. We get so caught up in our lives and the minutia there, and I'll tell you, that is getting caught up in an illusion. And I know that's easy to say because the illusion can feel so pressing and so imperative and so important. But there's something very powerful that happens when we gently take our attention off of what feels so pressing on that very physical level and instead look at what soul level might be playing out. Well, the external reality, physical manifestation stuff, it has a way of taking care of itself. It's weird how life works when you get to what it is that life is really about, which is about soul and the lessons of the soul. And that's what I hope to remind you of and help you to explore over the course of this 5-week journey that we're going to take together. Stardust Revelations, as low as just $5 a class for just a couple days left at the start of the week, after which Courses and classes are at their regular price of $35 a class, but yes, sign up now. $5 a class, only at synchronicityuniversity.com. Links are in the description below. Synchronicity University is proud to present an incredible May 2025 speaker series with 5 incredible astrologers, some that you're meeting for the first time, some who you've seen and loved before. Back at Synchronicity University, you've got a little time left to choose your tuition rate. As always, just $5 a class to learn from these incredible astrologers. I am going to start with Ryan Hunt. So this is his first time teaching at Synchronicity University. You've seen him on my channel as of late. I love his astrology. It's very grounded in the wisdom of the moon. He has this powerful connection to the moon, but also to an understanding of traditional astrology. He just loves it. And so it is going to be Ryan, who's going to help us to understand the planetary joys and how that helps us to understand aspects from this whole other deeper layer, and how it is that you can tap into that power to really bring forward readings of greater nuance and understand your chart that much more deeply. Georgia Pecora is a superstar. She is the force behind visionary astrology. I found her online through her Instagram account and I loved it. I love her astrology. And I'll tell you, I interviewed her recently. That interview will be publishing at the beginning of this week. And my goodness, is she a star? Is she ever ready? Is she ever so aware and really in her expertise? And she has built this loyal following, and it is going to be Georgia that's coming to Synchronicity University teaching us about retrograde planets. I really encourage you to watch that interview when it's out. She is an astrogenealogist, so she really helps us to understand like past patterns and even stuff that's run through our family line by understanding the astrology chart. What she teaches, how she speaks is just so powerful. You can tell that she's already a star, but you can just see she's just going to keep growing and growing going forward from here. I have no doubt she's going to continue to rise and gain more and more renown. Her energy, her charisma is just undeniable. Cassia Christoph is somebody that I call charisma, actually. I love Cassia. She's back at Synchronicity University, and she's going to be teaching about deep space objects. I interviewed her, that interview published recently, and you can see there's just so much enthusiasm and passion that she has for astrology. She too has built her own loyal following, but Cassia is somebody who's fascinated by things like the galactic center, the great attractor, and others. She's going to be looking at 4 deep space objects and helping us to understand how we can utilize that within our astrology practice. Jill Loftus of Nui Astrology, again, she is back and she's going to be looking at astrology and karma. Now, she's somebody I love as an astrologer. You might know, you've seen her on my channel at times when maybe I needed somebody to fill in for me for one reason or another. She was there because I just love what she presents and how she presents it. And so, yeah, she's going to bring that grounded in love and wisdom type of astrology to our understanding of exploring how karma plays out in the astrology chart. And Aquila Moon is back as well with an exploration of Neptune and Saturn. Her interview should be publishing early this week as well. And with that interview, we looked at the upcoming Saturn-Neptune movement through Aries for you and your sign, depending on your rising sign or sun sign even, you can use that information. So we actually go through the houses of understanding how that transit is going to speak to you. So you'll get to see just what an amazing astrologer she is by watching that interview. But for all that, I love her astrology. She's so insightful and she teaches in a way that's easy to grasp. And she is somebody also well-rooted in love. Now, every time I do interview people, normally, if I have a chance, I talk to them after the interview is over. And sometimes that conversation goes on than it does at other times. But with Aquila, the great thing is we were talking about how actually she came out to Cancun in the middle of the pandemic. And I lived in Cancun for about 7 years. And it really was just months before I left Cancun that she was out there, and she contacted me and she was like, hey, I know that you're in Cancun. I'm coming. I'd love to meet you. And so we ended up meeting. And from that meeting, so much of a wonderful connection, a professional connection and personal, was able to bloom forward from there. So that's why I say, like, I love meeting friends and fans when I'm traveling. And so, yeah, she is just one example of a friend and fan that I met while I was traveling who reached out. And from that place, a seed was planted that bloomed into even more and more wonderful things for both of us, I believe. So, and also for students of Synchronicity University, for friends and fans of my channel, because you've seen her on my channel so many times as well. And so, yes, she's going to bring even more of her brilliance being back at Synchronicity University. So you can see here, lots to look forward to, absolutely incredible astrologers that I'm super excited to present to you only at synchronicityuniversity.com. You've got literal days left to choose your tuition rate. As always, just $5 a class to learn from these amazing astrologers. Links below. Consultations are now available with me and Andy of Wise Ass Astrology. And now it's sort of a similar way in which you can go about booking readings with us. It's an entirely automated process. If you go on, you decide who you want a reading with. And we've got lots of different price points depending on whom it is that you choose to get your reading with. Once you choose the length of your reading, you will be forwarded to a calendar. Andy's got his own calendar going on. I have my own. And you choose the date you want. You are directed towards a form. You fill out that form, and then you go on to pay, and then automatically you will be sent a Zoom link. And that is the exact link that you will go to at the scheduled time of your reading. So whether you book a reading with me or with Andy, the process is the same. And I just want to thank you so much. I so love and so enjoy doing readings. I had sort of just had a very small group of established clients for a few years, quite a few years actually. And I opened up my calendar, and it has been such a wonderful and powerful and life-changing experience. And I thank you all so much for your trust, for reaching out and securing a reading with me. And I know that Andy feels the same way as well. You can head on over to my website, nadiyashah.com, and click on the consultation tab. And there you can see booking a reading with me or with Andy of Wise Ass Astrology. All those links are below. And just thank you again. And thank you. Thank you so much for this moment with you. Thank you for your trust. I'm so grateful for it. Now stay tuned for short horoscopes coming up right now in just a moment. For the short horoscopes, I'm going to go through understanding the new moon in Taurus for your sign. But remember, I did dive into it with greater detail in the monthly horoscope, so you may want to review those again as well. For all that, though, you have my absolute gratitude. What a privilege to be some part of your sacred journey, wherever it is that I fit in. Thank you so much. Thank you again for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy. Once every 2 years or so, Mars stands across the sky from Pluto, and this tends to represent a turning point, a looking in the mirror moment that comes on after a period of some stress, but has us feeling intensely so before it is that the energy very quickly dissipates right after this energy does perfect, which in this case does take place either very late Saturday, just before we start this week in the Americas, or Sunday in most of the world. And while I spoke about that last week, let me say that in this case, chances are we won't feel that break in energy, that release that we might be looking for, that sense of a turning point, at least not just yet. We might have to wait until we're a little bit later into the very beginning of the week. In fact, it is going to be on Sunday or Monday, depending on where you are on the planet, that we are going to have a powerful new moon in the sign of Taurus. Now, it is this new moon that is setting up a larger configuration called a T-square, which is a configuration of tension and motivation and frustration as well. As much as Mars opposite Pluto can suggest a turning point moment, it is with this new moon that we are feeling all of the pressure, and this part of life ends up feeling that much more stressed, that much more as if change is imperative and it's got to happen right now. For most of us, though, it is just a change in perspective that's needed. As much as we might want to take action, which is generally a good thing, if those actions are coming from a place of impulsivity, then we're working against the sky of the moment and the sky of this time. The energy of Taurus, after all, is patient. And this is a new moon, which invites a new beginning. Now, that new beginning that comes on now, yes, it might feel as if it comes about because we want things to be different and we feel the frustration of that. And yet, channeling this energy wisely and committing to a magical process, not necessarily a magic pill. Well, it is the process itself that helps us to build something, which taken one step at a time, one diligent moment at a time. Well, it will be 6 months from now that we're going to have a full moon in Taurus. And that is when truly incredible things rooted in the strength of our own power and our own self-knowledge, the desire for change, helps us to harness our will and manifest something we're really proud of in the fullness of time. Now, how this new moon speaks to you depends on your sun, moon, and rising sign. You want to take all three into consideration and then synthesize the information to make it unique to you. And of course, lots more horoscopes over on my YouTube channel, including the horoscopes for this month, which focused on the recent full moon and this new moon and even more. So you can check that out or watch that again. And of course, even more horoscopes are over in the superstar space at thefutureismagical.com. Aries, money you earn, money you spend, self-love, self-esteem. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't say with this new moon as part of that T-square with Mars and with Pluto, it just might feel like there's something you really, really want to buy. And there's something you really, really want to spend your money on. Trying to make that come together, well, there seems to be some tension around that. It might even be rooted in peer pressure in some way. But for all that, you get to decide what's worth the money and what isn't, whether it's how you're earning it or how it is that you're spending it. Remember, you can do anything, but in our world today, you do need to be entrepreneurial. And that's what this energy is encouraging you to do. Claim your own power and renew your own confidence. For all that, many Aries may not experience this financially at all. It may have more to do with an understanding of self-love, and through a difficult process, you just might have a breakthrough. Taurus, identity, who you know yourself to be, what matters to you most and first, and priorities in life all come into focus in a powerful way. It's like something about you knowing who you are, no matter what anybody else thinks about it, a determination to go your own way, to decide for yourself who you are. Well, that might be part of the tension that you're feeling now. There might be a sense that how it is that your family sees you or how it is that your boss sees you is not connected to some truth of you. And there's a desire now to claim that truth as all your own, whether that involves adjusting your career path or actually spending time with family of origin or deciding to spend less time. Your answers are going to be uniquely your own as you navigate this time. One thing's for sure, though, you are set to see yourself differently in some way. You are being redefined in the choices that you make now. So as we start this week, make sure you stay grounded in principles of love and wisdom, and you can't make a wrong choice. Gemini, soul, psyche, spirit, so much is stirring within you, but really this part of the sky has to do with what you're not aware of. You get a new moon here and this kind of new moon, and it's like what you didn't know. All of a sudden, you just might know, and it could be a game changer. And this could relate to just about any person, place, thing, or situation. So just stay open and understand that so much of this energy is about fortunate karmic closures. and karmic acceptance and faith through a process that might feel challenging, but ultimately will empower you. It's gossip. It's those random interactions that end up awakening something within you now that may not be comfortable, but does help you to align with what really is for you. So if there are karmic closures happening, remember they are fortunate karmic closures at that. And so much of this energy says that you are connecting to a knowing that you have so much more yet to do in this lifetime. Even if you don't know what all of it is just yet, it really is okay. Your faith is that strong. Cancer, friendships, group alliances, the person you least expected to be a source of stress just might be, or the one who's always a source of stress comes back around in some way and in ways that feel downright unfair to you. These are all possibilities that could kick up for you at this time. But for all that, you have this time to really look at whom you trust, whom you are aligned with, what groups are you participating in, and what groups have really served their purpose, professional, personal, or otherwise. This is a moment of truth that might be hard for some, but it does get you very clear of the role of other people in your life and your role in theirs. And from there, you get to adjust to make sure that the people who are in your life on a level of friendship, on a level of those group dynamics, well, they're truly worthy of the authenticity you bring. Leo, bosses or people in positions of authority, they can be difficult right about now. And I'd also say interview or audition situations can feel as if they are fraught with manipulation or power struggles and games. And I'm so sorry to say, but it does happen. Outside of that, though, this energy could work out more having to do with an understanding of your own life purpose. And where it comes to life purpose, what needs to change so that you feel more in alignment with that. Now, ultimately, this is a new moon that aligns you with greater success than you knew before. As part of the mystery, it is the tension, it is the frustration that has you taking action so that ultimately you do, in the fullness of time, align with the outcomes that are about success as you uniquely define them. Virgo, higher education, citizenship, long distance travel, and legal matters as well. Now, this could be a time when you're thinking about taking on a new endeavor related to these areas, or it could feel as if you've got to address an endeavor in these areas. Now, for all that, remember, this is about finding your power within a situation that feels powerless in some way. But most Virgos are not going to experience this energy in these very practical areas, but more personally having to do with your own beliefs and feeling as if you're questioning or at least wanting to strengthen your understanding of the world philosophically, spiritually, how you relate to the world and otherwise. Now, outside of all of this, I will say, if it is that you are doing any long distance traveling right about now, those journeys are going to have a very profound effect on you. If you are in the process of a journey, it could change in some dramatic way. But for all that, what this energy says is you are on a pathway towards understanding and defining for yourself where in the world you actually stand, whether that's a personal, figurative place or a literal one. Libra, change, truth, transformation, regeneration, and wealth. For some Libras, you may have to pay attention to a matter having to do with a bank or benefits you qualify for, your ability to access resources. The thing to remember is when we have such strong financial energy, it means that the money you need is there. Sometimes you're engaging some spiritual lessons on the pathway towards aligning with that prosperity. But for all that, if you are accessing a brand new loan now, just make sure you're very aware of the terms because things look a little messy on that front. Now, outside of that, though, I think most Libras are going to access this energy on a level of having to face some difficult truths within yourself, where it is that you're ready to move forward in certain ways, where it is that through being honest with yourself, you realize what pathways have served their purpose and where now you are moving forward. This is a part of the sky that has to do with authenticity. It might be a challenging or maybe even emotionally difficult journey that gets you to accept something about what is true for you and whom it is you really are. But that really should be embraced, because once you know, well, you living it is the pathway towards ultimately being well rooted in the truth of you, which is always a much more peaceful journey, as opposed to where it is that maybe you haven't been true to yourself. It's going to be obvious now and undeniable what it is now that you must do so that you really can feel more like you. Scorpio, love, partnerships of all kinds are covered here. Now, this could be a business partnership, but most are going to experience this in the context of the love you have or the love that you want. You're getting very honest about where you are, either with another person or just where you are in love and how you feel about that. Now, new moons bring with them new beginnings, and there could be a new attraction to somebody that feels just absolutely electric and almost as if it is hard to resist. However, it might be apparent to you very quickly that there's something kind of messy about whatever it is that this person brings. For all that, though, this could also be a difficult turning point in established bonds that are rooted in deeper honesty with each other. Now, outside of that, for those in established bonds, this energy might just be playing out with your partner and something challenging that they might be going through. And it is on you to be there in support and acknowledgement that you only have so much power in a given circumstance. Sagittarius, clients, customers, coworkers, and your daily life, including your health-related habits. There's a change that you feel ready to make, and that could be actually with the work you're doing or the environments you're in. But of course, it could also be with your health-related habits. This might be a time when you're very determined for a brand new chapter on that front, and you're making changes as a result. Now, where it comes to those clients, customers, and coworkers, new people might enter now. There is going to be a bit of a curve, an ebb and flow, if you will, as part of welcoming them in and figuring out how you're going to work with them. But for all that, this does give you a chance to find a new chapter that ultimately does align you with more rewarding projects and rituals that you can participate in with these people or on your own ahead. Capricorn, romance, flirtation, what the heart wants, and creative fulfillment is covered here as well. So if you're accessing this energy creatively, well, you seem very determined to go your own way or do your own thing or to share what it is that you do that you think is going to help you to align with more fulfilling outcomes. Now, creative projects and how they're received, it really can feel like it goes in all kinds of directions, but you're going to have to ask yourself whether or not the journey or what it is you're putting forward is worth how it might ruffle some feathers. Now, outside of that, though, a flirtation can feel all-consuming for you now. This could be where things feel complicated in some way with what it is you're wanting, romantically speaking. But for all that, you are getting your flirt on. New people you meet, if you are open to meeting new people, and even if you aren't, just know there's something just downright messy about what could be playing out there. So decide what it is that feels right for you to do in light of your unique circumstance. Aquarius, home, the past, your living situation, and your family of origin, your parents in particular, where that applies. And so new moons bring with them new understandings and new chapters. This could feel as if a member of your family pushes your buttons, but this wouldn't necessarily be a surprise energy or out of nowhere uncharacteristic energy. This could be some really deeper wounds stirring for you now, but ultimately they're stirring because they're ready to be looked at and healed in some way. If you have a home-based business or you work with homes, this might represent a time when you're feeling very motivated to make something happen. Outside of all of that, if you have to make changes to your living situation in some way, that might feel especially imperative, or just the journey there might feel frustrating to you. This could be like aesthetic changes to where you live, or it could have to do with the actual environment you find yourself in. But for all that, it is a time of understanding your rootedness differently And from there, ultimately aligning with a different and better understanding of what home is to you. Pisces, siblings, cousins, neighbors, these people might be a handful right about now, to say it nicely, but it can also be that these people, well, they feel like they're bringing an energy that is messy, unfair, complicated. I'm so sorry to say, but it does happen. Now, outside of that, it could be that they're going through something in their own life and you really don't have any power over it, but you can see how things could be a little messy for them right about now, but you'll pace yourself as you navigate this time. For all that, though, understand that this is a part of the sky that has to do with synchronicity, being in the right place at the right time, meeting the right person, but that doesn't mean it's an easy exchange. That doesn't mean it's an easy moment. It just means that you are navigating important lessons at this time and having realizations that are a game changer based on what feels like it just comes out of nowhere and happens and shows up for you to interact with. What you learn about yourself, well, it just might be worth a moment that could be uncomfortable, but incredibly valuable. Thank you for watching. It'll be a great week. Enjoy.